Now, if you're a content creator in the somewhat enviable position of being able to travel for work, you'll need a proper portable pal with some serious swagger to take on the role with you, so definitely check out the Acer Swift series. These skinny wee beauties are both light and slight, and this here Acer Swift 3X, or to give it its full super sexy moniker, the Acer Swift SF314 510G, is one of the freshest and most powerful models around. Content creators are catered for by Intel's discrete Iris Xe Max graphics, while the rest of the specs are pretty solid too. But the Acer Swift 3X will cost you from £1,200, which is just as much as Apple's MacBook Air. Now, I've been using the Acer Swift X for a good few days now, so here's my in-depth review. And for more on the latest greatest tech, please do plug subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, that size 0 14-inch aluminium alloy chassis is super light at just 1.37 kilos, making the Swift 3X ideal for shoving in a backpack and lugging around all day. And the Swift 3X is a perfectly smart laptop as well. The design doesn't exactly break any conventions or anything. This is the steam blue model. Gotta admit, it looks more grey to me, apart from the very blue hinge, but maybe that's just my general pessimistic attitude. Although if you're not a fan of this, you can also grab the Acer Swift 3X in a lighter Safari Gold version. As usual, Acer has made sure that the Swift 3X is solid enough to survive life on the road. That skinny lid can take some proper punishment, although I did notice that there is some flex around the top of the display where the panel doesn't quite seem to be joined properly to that bezel. I was impressed by the number of ports on this thing as well. For such a skinny laptop, Acer sure has managed to throw a lot of different connections on the edges of the Swift 3X. You've got two full-sized USB 3.2 ports, and you've also got a Type-C port with Thunderbolt 4 support. I would have preferred having a couple of Type-Cs rather than those dual Type-A's, especially as I tended to use my Type-C adapter to actually power up the Acer Swift 3X whenever I needed a bit of extra juice. But if you are desperate for extra ports, you can always just chuck an adapter on. You also get an HDMI port as well, which is more often than not left out of ultraportables. And you can also always use that Thunderbolt port to chuck on another 4K display if you want a real multi-screen setup. As for your wireless connectivity, well, no grumbles there whatsoever. With the Swift 3X, you get Wi-Fi 6 support and Bluetooth 5.1, and both of those works perfectly. And Acer also knows how to throw together a great keyboard, so it's no surprise that typing on the Swift 3X is a super comfortable experience, helped along by that hinge which lifts the arse end and gives you a slope setup. This backlit chiclet board is pleasingly firm with a decent bit of travel as you punch each key, at least considering how bloody thin this thing is. Those keys are really nicely spaced out, so you don't get gypped with a single row return key or anything like that. The only issue is, of course, the usual cramming of page up and page down keys right alongside those cursor keys, and guess what? You're going to be accidentally hitting those quite a bit. Now, you've got full fat Windows 10 support on the Acer Swift 3X. You've got full Windows Hello support as well, courtesy of the built-in fingerprint sensor as well, which often works a treat, although I did find occasionally the 3X just wouldn't bother to actually use the fingerprint reader to allow me to sign in, just as it's doing right here, very conveniently on time. Like it's saying right there, to sign in, scan your finger on the fingerprint reader, but nada. It's a shame, therefore, that you don't actually have any face recognition support for Windows Hello via that built-in HD webcam, which is just housed above the display. The actual camera itself is absolutely fine, though. You know, standard sort of HD effort that you find slapped on these laptops, absolutely fine for a bit of zoom in, Skype in, teaming, whatever it is you do when you actually want to make some sort of human contact these days. You don't have any kind of privacy shield to completely block yourself from view from that webcam, but you do at least get the usual dinky little LED that flashes on alongside it as soon as any of your apps start actually making use of it. And I found the built-in mics on the Swift 3X did an absolutely fine job of picking up my voice, but of course if you're going to be doing a bit of zooming or something, chances are you're going to be wearing a headset anyway. As for the display, well, that's a 14-inch IPS screen which almost completely fills the inside of that lid. The full HD resolution is standard at this price point, and it's certainly a good panel for creators thanks to the high colour accuracy. You've got 99% of that sRGB gamut and 74% of the Adobe RGB gamut accurately represented, so your photos, video clips, whatever, they all look pleasingly natural. The only real problem with the screen here is that it's an exceptionally dim display. I found in my test that it topped out at around the 300 nits brightness level, which is not great if you're going to be using it outdoors or anything. It certainly falls flat compared with a lot of rivals like the Dell XPS. And anyone who likes a good bit of touchscreen action on their laptops, well, sadly you don't get that option here on the Swift 3X. It's touchpad all the way, but it's a reasonably good pad as far as they go. Not the most spacious around, but it's perfectly responsive. You've got all your multi-touch support and everything as well. My only problem is it's shunted off slightly to the left, which meant that whenever I was using that, I would occasionally right click whenever I was trying to left click. And when you're kicking back with some movies or shows or whatever, you got some nice stereo speaker output here on the Swift 3X, and even though the grills are shoved away beneath the chassis, I still found that the volume was just about loud enough to be clearly heard in a noisy room, even with kids throwing the usual lockdown tantrums in the background. It's not the beefiest output around by any means, but for an ultra portable it really ain't bad, and the good thing is that the clarity stays strong even on the top volume. As for the performance, well, the Swift 3X is powered by one of Intel's 11th gen Tiger Lake CPUs, specifically the Core i7-1165G7. And Acer has managed to stuff in 16 gigs of RAM to back it up as well, so not a bad setup for an ultra portable laptop. This notebook can certainly handle plenty of apps simultaneously, but I did see a fair few awkward judders when I was using Google Chrome, where the display just seemed to freeze for a split second. And this was most obvious when playing video in something like Netflix, Crunchyroll or YouTube, and it definitely got a bit irritating. And the Acer Swift 3X also manages to find a bit of room in that compact chassis for some proper discrete graphics as well, namely Intel's Iris Xe Max. And this is basically designed to make content creating on the road a lot less hair-rippingly frustrating. So photo editing and a bit of light video editing is absolutely fine here on the Acer Swift 3X, nice and smooth, but gaming is a whole other story. You know, all the titles and less demanding stuff runs absolutely fine, but if you want to actually get some proper gaming on the go, you'll definitely have to look elsewhere. I'm talking a laptop rocking a proper dedicated gaming GPU here. I did try to play the likes of the original Doom reboot, for instance, which was from like 5 freaking years ago now, terrifying stuff, and it was playable, but it wasn't exactly an enjoyable experience. Even on those low detail settings, it still dipped quite considerably the old frame rate. Me, I say just get a good bit of Duke Nukem 3D on the go, you can't go wrong. And for any benchmarking fans out there, the Acer Swift 3X performed admirably. The likes of Cinebench 20 spat out a score of 2,229, and in 3D Mark, Time Spy spaffed out a score of 1,778, while in Firestrike Extreme we got a score of 2,436. And in that 3D Mark Time Spy stress test, we got a successful pass score of 98.4%. You've got the usual cool and fan setup here on the Acer Swift 3X, which kicks into life as soon as the inside of the laptop starts to get a little bit toasty. And as you can hear there, it's just starting to ramp up now. And on the maximum level, it does get a little bit noisy, but nothing too severe. More importantly, the cooling system is very effective at keeping the laptop from getting too hot, and I certainly didn't notice any performance issues on that front. For your storage needs, you've got a 1TB NVMe SSD, which is reasonably quick for an ultra-portable drive, repeatedly reporting read and write speeds around the 2 gigabits per second mark. Not one of the quickest around, but certainly not bad either. But sadly, there's no memory card support here on the Acer Swift 3X, which is a real shame, especially useful for content creators whenever you just want to rip your memory card out of your camera, slap it into your laptop and just copy those files straight across. As for the battery life, well, I certainly didn't get anywhere near Acer's reported effort of around 17 hours of use per charge. I found that when I was working in Chrome, I tended to get around 7 hours of use on a charge, even with a bit of streaming and stuff like that on the go. But of course, if you're doing anything a bit more intensive, like that content creation stuff, photo editing, video editing, it tends to drop a little bit faster. So right, there's what I think of the Acer Swift 3X after using it as my laptop for a good few days. There's certainly lots to love in here, some very respectable performance and decent battery life, and a nice, slim, ultra-portable chassis. Just a little bit perturbed by the occasional little stutter when I was working in Chrome, and of course the fact that the fingerprint sensor just occasionally just didn't decide to work. So that's what I think, but have you been using the Acer Swift 3X as your full-time notebook as well? It'd be great to hear from you down in the comments below. Are you tempted by the Swift 3X or any of the other Swift laptops? I've reviewed a couple of them here on TechSperts, definitely go check those out. I've also reviewed the Dell XPSs, the Apple MacBook M1 Pro, so go check all those out for alternatives if you're a content creator who needs something slim and light. And for more on the latest greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers!